Welcome to the Think Holistic Podcast by Indie Holistic Hub, a show designed to help you on your wellness journey. When you think holistic, you live holistic. Find out more at indieholistichub.com. Now, here's your host, Jennifer Sefrin.
It is a great day to think holistic. I am so privileged to have Neil McGuffog on with me today. After more than 15 years in promoting wellness programs to companies around the Midwest, Neil left the corporate world, he might call it a midlife challenge, to launch At the Core. The organization's goal is to bring the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being benefits of movement, breath, and mindfulness practices to individuals and employees in businesses where people are sedentary, they're stressed, energy deficient, and sleep deprived. So his mission, rather, is to help them enjoy more energy, less stress, increased focus, and reduced negativity by introducing the practices of breathing, yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. Thank you, Neil, so much for being with me today.
Oh, I'm delighted. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, indeed. Well, I've known you for some years now. You've been a long-term, let's say, member of Indie Holistic Hub. Yep. You have been serving on the Leadership Council. You've been collaborating with lots of other beautiful holistics in our community to provide more conscious offerings and upliftment. So I love knowing you and I appreciate your support.
Well, thank you very much. And likewise with you and the vision you had years ago for the Indie Holistic Hub and how it's just continued to embrace this community and bring, like-minded folks in so that we can spread the message of living holistically.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. So we're going to talk about that today. And what I love is getting to share stories of people like you with people out there, because it's our inspiration and our heart's path that connects with others and inspires their journey, because that's what this is. It's a day-to-day journey of tending to our wholeness. Yeah. So
couldn't agree more.
Let's start off and tell us what brought you towards a holistic path in your life?
And it begins back in probably college and post-college, when the penchant, the tendency to over-imbibe in alcohol and become really, frankly, it becoming a central part of my life. Unrealized to me, unknown to me, the role that alcohol was playing. I thought I was just that normal partier, drinker, fun on the weekends, and let's just let loose. It's what's socially acceptable. But over time, it became more than that. And there were times where I realized it was playing a bigger role in my life than I really anticipated or really was willing to make an admission about. And that really launched me into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and making an admission of a defeat, a surrender to the fact that alcohol had kind of kicked my butt. And there was some unmanageability in my life, and that happened around age 32. So at that time, I was relatively newly married and with just a young son. And the realization that there was alcoholism in my family. I was thinking I was being the supportive son by attending the Al-Anon meetings. Al-Anon is the meeting for those who are family members of those who are in the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And so my mom was had 3, 4, 5 years into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm going to the Al-Anon meetings thinking I'm supportive of my mom, which I was, but at the same time I was thinking I really need to be more in the AA meetings. And year 1 turned into year 4, turned into year 9, turned into year 22. And so 30 years later, it's still an integral part of my being. It's woven into the fabric of my beingness to understand and work the principles of the program which to me are so holistically based and so very powerful in ways to live this thing called life in a way that's filled with abundance, with joy, with emotion, with awareness. All this kind of comes under the umbrella of the recovery world for me, and many others, millions of others.
So I know you're certified in yoga and some other mindfulness techniques, if I call them that. So you were looking at yourself and doing some of your own inner work, right? And what then prompted you to, I don't know, how long did you work in corporate wellness?
Yeah. So, well, if I put all of the corporate work I did, in corporate America together, it was about 27 years.
Okay.
The last 15 of those was in the corporate wellness space, which I really liked at first. This idea of bringing wellness programming and wellness practices into workplaces around the Midwest. So I was on a sales team talking to organizations in the Midwest, around the Midwest, to introduce the idea of this. And this was going back, 15, 16, 17, almost 20 years ago, when corporate wellness was still kind of a relatively fresh idea. It was gaining momentum quickly under the umbrella of health insurance. Mm-hmm. And it was, still an extension of the corporate space where I would recognize the burnout. I would recognize folks who were extremely stressed, recognize how the tensions, how is the relationships were very, very superficial, very surface, and so on. And I was just gaining more and more discontentment with that space. And by the way, we didn't want to talk to you in the corporate wellness space if you didn't have a minimum of 500 employees. And I thought to myself, what happens if you had 82 people working for you?
Exactly.
Or 12. Yeah, this is a huge market in everywhere. It's the small business and category. And I took a leap of faith. Having never really had an entrepreneurial hat on my head, I was doing some wellness consulting independently of I had officially left the corporate wellness space and was doing some consulting. And at first I thought I was going to be my own mini wellness company with hiring a phlebotomist to draw blood. I thought I was going to have a fairly robust interactive website. And lo and behold, all that came together to be extremely complex and very expensive. When one of my mentors with whom I was working with said, well, Neil, let's see, you've been training for marathons and running for a long time. You're moving a lot. You're practicing and teaching yoga. Why don't you just keep this thing simple and launch as kind of a movement-based organization talking to these small employers? Mm-hmm. And that was the impetus for At the Core in 2015, July, and it's been an absolute wonderful, powerful, scary ride since.
Yes, all the things, right?
All the feels.
I can relate to that for sure. Mm-hmm. So you had already become certified in yoga and were teaching it. Like how long, when did you do that? Had you been doing that for some time when you were still in the corporate wellness space?
Good question. Yes, had been training for marathons, and I had a training partner who introduced me to this thing called yoga. And my initial response was, there's no way. I'm not going to waste an hour doing yoga. I'll train. I'll do some resistance training. I'll do some speed work. I'll get on the treadmill, yada, yada. Unbeknownst to me, the fact that yoga, it can be such a wonderful complement to those who are runners, for the stretching, for the injury prevention, for all the training purposes that can help you prevent certain injuries. And then my first session, I was sold. I was hooked the very first session, and it just escalated from there to continue to practice on my own, and then have the idea introduced to expand my practice and expand my understanding of yoga by becoming a certified 200-hour certified yoga teacher. And Yes, that happened in 2000 and what was that? 2012. Yeah, 2011, 2012. And that was, it did exactly that. Expanded my knowledge, helped me to embrace, much deeper understanding of yoga, and then introduced or was trained in mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's MBSR. That's Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, John Kabat-Zinn's process of mindfulness-based stress reduction. I took that during the pandemic. Yes, and then big fan and follower of a breathing practitioner and also a fellow yogi by the name of Wim Hof. Some of your viewers might be maybe familiar, probably you are as well. WIMHOF.
Awesome.
Wim Hof, aka the Iceman. So this was kind of the journey that's unfolded, and I've been a student, been an instructor for 15 years, an instructor for almost 11.
Good for you.
And seeing how there is a wonderful blending, in my humble opinion, of the yoga practice and as I've discovered recently, the work I'm doing in the recovery world with those facing substance abuse issues, drug addiction, alcoholism, addictions of different kinds, where they're seeking recovery from a substance or a mindset. That the blending of bringing yoga and mindfulness certainly has a nice complement to what we call the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in that recovery world.
Wow. So going back to your first resistance to the yoga idea,
yes.
And then you allowed yourself to entertain it. You mentioned some of the flexibility aspects of it. What other surprising things did you discover through yoga?
Oh, good question. I'm a big fan of of community building, and there is in not only in the recovery world, but it's certainly in the yoga world a strong sense of community. And I think as even prior to the pandemic, certainly post-pandemic, if we can build stronger connections, and I see connections taking place with my students, with myself as a student in the yoga world, those connections to breath, to body, to soul, those connections as we build them, I think those in turn lead to build stronger communities. And going forward, as these next months and years unfold, it's going to be really important, key for us to have stronger connections with fellows, with ourselves, and with our communities, so that those communities can strive and be stronger.
Yes, indeed. I have chills. I'm with you completely. Thank you for sharing that. I think you're very much correct in that. So
and then
thank you for being one of those people, those connections and community builders.
Yes, and then of course the falling in love with that very first session from many years ago, the physical aspects, the fact that now at age 62, able to to still do things that are helping my bodies to stay in a state of homeostasis, sleep patterns and weight management, and creating a clearer headspace, having opening my heart and to the opportunities and possibilities, and having again that from yoga to the recovery world, I regularly refer to those as kind of a dual paths, kind of tracking along with each other, as there's a lot of connection, and a lot of mindsets that meld in those two areas.
So you left the corporate world to do things your way. Yay.
Yes.
What are you seeing people experiencing and doing it your way?
Sure. Good question. Again, it will vary from audience to audience. I will say that the general response, the reaction, the feedback from the corporate side is, as was mentioned earlier, oh, I feel so much lighter. Oftentimes these sessions take place in the morning time or in the afternoon time, sometimes in the after the close of business, and the ability to feel lighter, to feel a little more energetic. There's been several occasions where individual students have come to me and said my sleep patterns have improved tremendously. I was experiencing some insomnia, and I was on this over-the-counter drug. I had a couple of people saying they were on prescription drugs for, to maintain, to try to find sleep hygiene. And just simply 3 months, 6 months, 8 months into this process, watching this evolution of well-being take place, with increased energy, less stress, being able to, find more, how do I say this, more with colleagues in the workspace, being a little more open to actively listening. So a lot of benefits that are fairly intrinsic. On occasion, some extrinsic changes I'd see, because there was just a general overall sense of light kind of coming from a person, or some change in skin color and complexion, and some, on a handful of times, some weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow.
And then, if I was to look at the recovery community, that brings another level of transformation, and it's literally, coming from a state of being, still detoxing from their drug of choice, and then 3.5 weeks into this process, that complexion changes. The eyes get brighter. My low back. I've had such, I was in an automobile accident, and I've had this lumbar issue for years. And just, these practices we've been doing for the last 3 weeks have helped that pain in my low back. Shoulder injuries, we were starting to move and get some of what I would refer to as stuck energy. When we have, especially in certain populations, when there's lack of movement or lack of well-being or holistic living, whatever perspective, whether it be food or activities or alcohol or drugs, that energy that it kind of creates some inflammation in the body, and it gets stuck, and we have issues.
Mm-hmm.
Joint issues and pain, and so when we introduce the practice of yoga and breathing and mindfulness, these both intrinsic and extrinsic possibilities open up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Such a range of possibilities that you just named off of benefits, and
yes. Restored relationships with colleague to colleague, person to spouse, just bringing in this idea that we are enough as we are. We've made, with all of the trauma that's seemingly deep-seated, some deep-seated more than others, but it's you're creating a safe space. I think back to early on with these sessions I would do in the corporate space. It was a training room or a conference room where the furniture was pushed off to the side, and trying to let folks know it's okay to come in there and be safe, feel secure. This is probably, you're familiar with this space, but not familiar with doing yoga in this space, and that we're going to try to be competition free with ourselves and each other, trying to be judgment free with ourselves and with each other in creating those spaces. And it's been a wonderful challenge and journey, and for me to find that, help individuals find that level of peace of mind and security and safety as they're practicing, whether it be on the 15th floor of a building somewhere downtown, or just I'm certainly at a couple of treatment centers, working there. So, and then on the doing Zoom sessions, I've got a Parkinson's patient I work with. Got some private husband and wife teams that I work with. So yeah.
Nice. I know you getting to witness these things in other people totally fills your heart. I know it does, because I know you, and you've got such a gracious heart. I mean, these people are blessed to work with you, Neil.
Thank you.
Yes, seriously.
And I'm blessed to have them in my midst, and just if you'd have told me, 15 years ago I'd be doing this, or 10 years, I would have said, it's.
Well, you mentioned we're talking, about corporate and working with the recovery world, and you just mentioned too, you work with individuals. So I know you're launching. You have a weekly offering it's newer. So
Yes.
I would love for you to comment to that. So people can tap in.
Yep. It'll be coming up starting the mid-month, the 15th of March, and it'll be each Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30. It is an offering called Discover and Recover. So the short term would be D, the and sign, and R, D and R, where as an individual or a group of individuals who perhaps have discovered what maybe an illness or an injury has done to them physically, emotionally, mentally, what perhaps maybe the loss of a loved one or a relationship, perhaps a realization that there is maybe some addictive component to their personality or somebody in their midst, or so these are the life events, or these are the realizations that if somebody embraces or has a deep understanding, or even a general understanding of something like that, an injury, an illness, a loss of some sort, or maybe this addiction to whatever, shopping, sex, work, whatever, to come to the Discover and Recover sessions on Wednesdays at 9:30. You'll see it on my website, to decompress, to self-care, to build some self-compassion and self-awareness around that. And we'll do this through some gentle yoga practice movements, some yoga movements, and the breathing techniques, and some mindfulness. So I'm really excited about launching that. It'll be each Wednesday, 9:30 to 10:30, starting March 15th.
Glorious. That sounds lovely indeed. What a treat.
Yeah.
I look forward to checking it out. So part of what we do here, is we like to give holistic tips to the people listening in, right?
Right.
Again, this is a journey. So I know you have a few tips to share with people today. You want to start off with your first one?
I do. This is one that may ring familiar with folks who are listening, who are engaging in this. It's the concept, the notion, the idea of managing one's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we've heard that from, maybe if we've said it to ourselves, a colleague, a loved one has introduced this idea that we were probably familiar with already, but we're going to see what it looks like to embrace it in our lives. For me, it's working with a new client, working with new groups, managing my expectations that I might only have 3 people show up on this particular week, and then 11 shows up the next week. I'm just, I'm managing my expectations to be of service in this role of yoga instructor in whatever capacity, whether it's corporate, whether it's individual, whether it's with couples, whether it's in the recovery community, is just I'm there as a placeholder. I'm there to hold space, whether there's 2 people or 22 people. So I'm just managing my expectations around that. That's one example.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is from a book by Don Miguel Ruiz, and folks probably are familiar with one of his keystone works is The 4 Agreements.
Yeah.
The 4 Agreements, yeah. So there'll be people nodding their head, and I'll go through them. The book was I read it 3 or 4 years ago, but simply stated or encapsulating them. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. Number 2, don't take anything personally. Number 3, always do your best. And number 4, don't make assumptions. So yes, in my humble opinion, another way to embrace this holistic way of thinking and living and being is if we can be impeccable with our word. Don't take anything personally. Good luck with that.
Right.
We're human beings. Always do your best. And then please don't make assumptions. And so just, I have these, I hand them out. You know what I do? When I'm at the ATM, or when I'm at the drive-through, at the teller, at the bank, at the credit union, when that little tube comes, I've got these in my passenger seat.
Oh my gosh.
Transaction, I fold one up and I put it in there.
Of course you do. Oh my gosh. Of course you do.
Who knows is going to pull that out?
That's awesome. Oh, let's more of us do that. Yes.
Do something. Yeah, if you go to the ATM or to the drive-through and you have a little track. So who knows? Maybe the teller's getting it, or perhaps the next person pulling out that tube.
Perhaps, yes. I will say, Neil, just regarding the book.
Yes.
It's been a while since I read it, and it's it's an easy read, and it helps you to work on those things, right? Like you just said, good luck with not taking things personally, but it gives you new insights and it heightens your perspective to begin to recognize it a bit more. And then you realize, oh, I don't need to take that personally anymore. So
absolutely.
All right. You have a third tip for us?
Yeah, third one is what we're doing right now. We're breathing. And we do it. Thank you, autonomic nervous system, for having us do this. But in essence, a more focused and more awareness around our breathing practices. And it could be something as simple as 3, maybe 4 deep, full, rich, deep diaphragmatic breaths. The word on the street is we have a tendency in this country to breathe fairly shallowly and more in the upper chest. So, practice some belly breathing. There are dozens and dozens of breathing practices that you could find online that are being introduced, especially since post-pandemic. One suggestion that is we practice regularly in the yoga world is called Ujjayi breath, which is just a fancy term for nostril breathing. And in essence, we have mucous membranes and nostril hairs that can be the first defense against pathogens and allergens and other things that, as we practice nostril breathing, can be a barrier to some of those, that are out there in the atmosphere. And then for any of your listeners, anybody listening to this, watching this, it's a great way to build lung capacity. So if you're doing any brisk walking, if you're cycling, if you're going up and down stairs, maybe just look at the watch, do some nostril breathing for 30 to 45 seconds every once in a while to, build lung. And, going forward post-pandemic, boy, we could use stronger lung capacity and lung endurance.
Yes, I was going to say, who wouldn't want that? Even if you're not an athlete or whatnot, it's like, especially as we age and such. I mean, I want strong lungs when I'm 90, so I love that. Great suggestion. These are beautiful tips, Neil. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So as we begin to sign off for today,
sure.
Did you have any other final thoughts or words you'd like to share?
Mantras exist in many different lineages, especially in the yoga world. And one of my favorites is just the simple fact, the profound fact that your breath and your body are always in the present moment. So if I just think for a moment right now, my breath and my body aren't going anywhere. They're right here, right now. And they'll always be, even though I'm trying to take the word always out of my vocabulary. In this context, the breath and the body are always in the present moment. And indeed, the other part of that mantra is that the mind has a tendency to wander. So my mind will ruminate on last week, what I should have done, what I could have done, what I would have done. And my mind will then project into tomorrow afternoon. And so it's this rumination and projection that minds have a tendency to do, as opposed to following the breath, following the body in its present moment mode.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I always have my breath right here, right now, and my body right here, right now.
You can't, it won't go anywhere. You can't.
I'm trying to run away right now, and it's not happening, Neil. I'm still right here, right now.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I suppose too, then that's why going to the breath and practicing the breathing then in turn helps us to be present.
Yes. So. It's a cliche. It seems so elementary, so basic, so foundational. But yes, when the buttons get pushed, when the triggers are tripped, when the stress and anxiety upticks, please come back to the breath. It's an anchor. It will always be there. It's an anchor, and it can provide such a phenomenal resource and a tool to decompress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I wish you very well in your new class.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing how it goes. You all can follow Neil on Facebook.
Facebook, yep.
At the core.
At thecoreindy.com.
At thecoreindy.com. We also have in the show notes below, wherever you're listening to this, additional links and ways to follow and information about Neil and At the Core. I also invite you all to utilize our free resource from Indy Holistic Hub by visiting indyholistichub.com, where you can use our online directory and community calendar there. All right, Neil. Thank you. Many blessings.
Thank you.
Many blessings to all of you out there. And remember to think holistic.
Thank you for listening to the Think Holistic podcast by Indy Holistic Hub, a show designed to help you on your wellness journey. When you think holistic,